break or just a second?
I think the second. I can leave and come back if you'd rather me to.
Oh, it doesn't matter. If you're here, you might as well stay. If you just want to mute your mic, that'd be great. That's
Oh,
fine. Or
okay.
if you want to join us, that would be fine too.
I can mute. I can hang.
Okay, perfect. All right, leave it. All right, here we go. 100.1 FM, AM 1020, KDKA. This is Cars, Stars, and Everything in Between. Richard Bazzi from Schultz Ford. I'm Bubba from 100.7 Star. And when we started Cars, Stars, and Everything in Between, we talked about all of the different people that we would have on over the years. And, and it's literally Cars, Stars, and Everything in Between. Little did I know that we would have this amazing of a star on with us today, a legend in Pittsburgh. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Lange. Welcome to the show.
Bubba, there's no such thing as a legend. No such thing.
I don't know, Mike. I mean, Mike, think about this for a second. What was the date that you did your first broadcast of a Pittsburgh Penguin hockey game?
Well, I can't give you the exact date, but I can tell you it was October of 1974, and it was in Minnesota.
So October of 1974, you did your first game. And while there are, if you think about the Pittsburgh Penguins and their storied history, right? And I grew up with a Penguins fan because my dad liked the Penguins. My dad my dad had in fact a Hornets jacket, which was the old name of the Pittsburgh hockey team. But my father, I've known the Penguins so long that their original uniforms were blue.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, they were blue. We had a live penguin that used to come on the ice. They had to stop that process because a couple of them died. So they weren't used to the ice surface at the Civic Arena. But that goes way back. The blue and white of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
I remember my favorite hockey player growing up was a guy by the name of Peter Lee. How about that for a name from the past?
Yeah, fantastic. Great right winger and had good speed and played with Rod Schutt, another former Montrealer. They both came to Pittsburgh and put in some good time here. They were good players.
So let's rewind to 1974 when you started with the Pittsburgh Penguins. In your wildest imagination, your wildest dreams, did you ever think you would still be involved with the Pittsburgh Penguins to this day?
Well, quite honestly, I wasn't after that first year because the team went bankrupt.
What?
The first time. And everybody lost their job. I ended up going back to California where I came from and was out for a year. They were bought in receivership and they went to a new station that next year with another broadcaster. He ended up going back to the West Coast to Seattle, and it opened the door for me to get a chance to get back in. And I did.
Do you remember?
Be able to come back.
So I think this is an amazing story. So you were the broadcaster for the Pittsburgh Penguins for 1 year. You lost your job for a year. Then you came back, and you've obviously been a part of the team since. Do you remember the name of the guy that replaced you for that 1 year in 1975?
Gary Morrell. Wow. Gary Morrell was his name. Yes.
Yeah. So obviously, Mike, you are when it comes to hockey, play-by-play, the best there ever was. Period. Best there ever is. You're just the best. Do you remember the first year? Was it in 1974? At what point did you start using all of your Mike Langisms?
Well, when I first came, I think I was pretty much limited to one I wanted to use was Great Balls of Fire.
Okay.
And so that was the one I kind of started the first year, but I got response a lot. From that, surprisingly, I had planned in my early years that if I ever got into this business and got a chance to be in the big leagues, that I would try and do something a little different, and I would use phrases. And part of that was brought on by my deep desire to want to be like a broadcaster in the Bay Area in San Francisco. His name was Bill King.
Okay.
He did the San Francisco Warriors basketball, and he also did the Oakland Raiders, the hated Oakland Raiders. But he used a phrase when a touchdown was scored, or a dramatic moment in the basketball game, he would just say, "Holy Toledo."
Wow.
And it just sends chills down my spine whenever he would do that. And I said, if I ever get a chance to get into broadcasting, I'm going to do something hopefully, something a little different. So Great Balls of Fire was born. I used that. I added a few along the way. Then people got really interested. And I came to the right place because like the crazy broadcasters, Rosie Rosewell, Bob Prince, Myron Cope, the good Lord sent me. He says, I got a place for you. And he sent me to
That's
so
awesome.
it's
Of all of, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
no, it's the truth. And then the fans really got into it. And they started giving me phrases and things to use. Some of them, most of the time, you couldn't use on air. But it kind of built from there. And I would add one or two a year, and we took off with it and had some fun.
Just a ballpark percentage. What percentage of the phrases did you come up with, and what percentage of the phrases were given you that you ended up using?
Oh, I would say probably 20% that were given to me. I'm guessing in that category. The others come from my trained ear, from hearing things, and also reading or seeing something that kind of drew my attention. And so that's how they all kind of developed.
I have a great story I'd love to quickly share with you. You were just talking about all the legendary broadcasters, and I had developed a very good relationship with Myron Cope over the years before he passed. And I remember calling him. There was a playoff run that the Penguins went on, and everybody was waving a towel at a Penguins game. So I called Myron Cope on the radio, and I said, Myron, what are your thoughts about Penguins fans waving a towel at Penguins games, since the terrible towel was something that you created? And do you know that Myron Cope was like, that's horrible. I don't like it. It should only be at Steelers games. The Penguins need to come up with their own thing, which I thought was one of the greatest, most legendary answers of all time.
I was almost in total agreement with him. You got to be unique. I'm with him. That's a Steeler thing. No question. No doubt in my mind.
So is there any, obviously you've had an amazing career. I mean, you've seen Mario Lemieux. You've seen Sidney Crosby. You've seen Evgeny Malkin. You've seen some of the greatest hockey players in the history of hockey every single day. Is there any one thing, any one moment, any one player that no matter what you can't shake because it just was that impactful in your career?
Wow. Well, Mario certainly would be the top and center in that regard. I mean, anytime he touched the puck, anything he did was magical. I always said that Mario, anything he touched turned to gold. And he's followed that his whole life and what's developed and the ownership of this hockey club and helping to keep it here, not once, but twice. So he probably would be front and center. I've seen so many great players. I've been blessed, really, Bubba, to see, you take Paul Coffey, take Jaromir Jagr, take Ron Francis, Joey Mullen. I mean, I can go on and on of all the unbelievable players that are in the Hall of Fame that I've been able to call games and be around.
And Mike,
so I've been blessed.
I don't know if you saw this, but did you see that Jaromir Jagr? Did you see Jaromir Jagr played a game at the age of 50 because he had to for the team that he owns? Did you see that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a little surprised, but not in any big way. And the reason is that Bob made to play till he was 60. I'm telling you, the guy was a perfect fit physically to do anything, and he's had the strength. And he's like Chris Letang a little bit. I think Letang could play probably till he's 45.
Absolutely. Well, listen,
Mike, if everything went well.
Mike, I'm beyond thankful that you took a little bit of time out of your schedule to come on Car Stars and everything in between. I know you don't like the word legend, but you are without a doubt one of the greatest broadcasters that has ever called any game in any sport in the city of Pittsburgh. And on behalf of the entire city of Pittsburgh, thank you so much for all you've given to the city. And it's so many smiles and so much happiness. We are blessed to have you a part of the city.
Well, Bubba, I thank you. And we're in good hands now with Josh Getzoff and Phil Bork, my old partner. They're going to carry the flag now, so it's up to them. to keep it going. But I've had a great career, and I can only tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Lange, thank you so much. Wow. Thank you, Mike. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bubba.
Yeah,
I'm not going to stay on for Josh.
That's okay. Well, I'm blessed to have had you, and I feel honored that you agreed to do this with us. Thank you so much.
I want him to be comfortable. So have a good one, Josh.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mikey. You were awesome, as always.
All right, see you.
All right, Josh, give me 1 second. I just have to save that break for. Wow.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I'm kind of speechless. I'm not gonna lie to you, Josh. I'm kind of speechless.
Yeah, he's the man. He's great. His recall of everything is amazing too.
That's unbelievable. That is, I will save that forever. In fact, Chelsea, after we get done here, I want to talk to you about that interview real quick. I have to save this first, Josh.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want me to turn my camera on, Bubba, or do you?
It's up to you. It doesn't matter. Yeah, if it makes you more comfortable to make eye contact. So it's weird because like, I'm here, but I'm actually recording there.
Yeah,
so I have two things going at one time.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind putting the camera on.
That's easy. All right, let me just save this again. I'll save that. Publish, save. So if you imagine this, we just did for a listener, they just heard Mike Lange. We went to commercials, and now we're coming back with you.
Okay.
I'll tell you, while we're waiting, I'm waiting for the show. I'm gonna show you. Can you see me? I'll show you a picture.
Yeah, I see you.
Thank you to my friend Richard Bazzi. This is where I was for the Columbus game the other night. These are my seats.
Wow. Right behind the bench. Unbelievable.
Yeah, thank you, Richard Bazzi. That was awesome.
Yeah, holy smokes. That's awesome.
All right, here we go. 100.1 FM, AM 1020, KDKA. This is Cars, Stars, and everything in between. Richard Bazzi from Schultz Ford, schultzford.com. I'm Bubba from 100.7 Star. And what a blessing to have had Mike Lange, legendary broadcaster, on with us in the first break. And a legend in the making. Josh, you like that? Josh Getzoff, do you like that? A legend in the making?
I'm gonna defer that, just like Mikey deferred the legend card also. No, Bubba, but it's great to be with you. It's great to be with you.
So, tell me if you feel this, what I'm about to tell you. They always say you never want to be the person that replaces the legend. You want to be the person that replaces the person who replaced the legend. Have you ever felt that?
So what you're saying is the person who replaces me's got it easy. Is that what you're saying? But
because you do such an amazing job that listen, I'm just being honest. I've been in radio for a very long time. I get it. It's hard to be that guy that replaces somebody that is as iconic as Mike Lange is. Did you ever feel that pressure?
I'll be honest with you, and I know this is easy to say now, a couple years removed, but I never really felt the pressure, and a lot of that had to do with Mike and Phil. You know, I worked with Phil for a handful of years before I started filling in for Mike, doing the pregame and postgame shows with him. So he and I knew each other. We kind of knew our cadences when we spoke. We kind of had a little bit of chemistry with that role. And then Mike, took me under his wing literally from the first day that I came to Pittsburgh. He saw something in me that I wasn't even aware of at that point. And he kind of started to guide me in this path to eventually taking that seat over. So I wouldn't say I was ever intimidated by it or a little uncomfortable with it. In fact, I've always kind of looked at it as, and I think people who listen to me call a game, I don't call games like Mike did. And that's not any knock on Mike. That's Mike's style. Mike Lange is one of a kind. He's, as you mentioned earlier, he's the greatest to ever do it. I would say in all of hockey, not just in Pittsburgh.
I agree.
Yeah. And I look at that and I respect that and I honor that, but I also feel like I got to stand in my own shoes and be tall enough in those shoes. So I try to, write my own path. And I think that mindset and the people that I've been around to get to this position have really helped me not so much look at who I'm following, but just where we are at in the present and where we're going.
And you're in your 7th year with the Penguins, so it's not like you've been around for a year or two. You've been around for a while. The one thing that I find is amazingly difficult about hockey play-by-play, which is what you do. If you're a baseball announcer, it's like this guy's on the mound, this guy throws the pitch, this guy hits the ball, this guy catches the ball, right? If it's a football, it's a pass. There's only a couple people, but in hockey, between passes and shots and guys on the ice and guys off the ice, how do you keep track? How have you trained yourself to do play-by-play in an environment that changes that quickly and is that fast-paced?
Yeah, it definitely requires quite a mental commitment, Bubba. I mean, when I'm preparing for a game on a game day, a lot of the day I spend, thinking of phrases and lines and verbs to describe the action on the ice and going through names and numbers of both teams. It's kind of an hours long preparation for a couple hours long game. But there's a lot of it that comes with anticipation. Calling more games gets you more into a flow. There's no question. Like anything in life, the more reps you get, the better you get at it, and the more you can anticipate things. But I did play the game growing up. I played it in college, not ever at the NHL level, but I think that background and just the years spent around the game and in rinks and watching games gives me an ability to anticipate and to be able to, raise my voice in anticipation in certain situations, which I think lends itself to, following the flow of the game and the players within it all that much better.
We're talking to Josh Getzoff with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Have you developed so? Obviously, you're up top. You're looking down. You're seeing it, right? Have you developed a favorite player over your career that just based on what you see has created an environment for you to just make these amazing calls?
I think that the easy answer would be Sidney Crosby, because every single night he does something that I'm kind of looking over at Phil Bourque and just shaking my head out while I'm calling the action. Like, what in the how do you do that?
He scored a goal against the Blue Jackets where he was literally falling on his back.
Right, yeah, and it was able to roof it too, lift it over the pad.
He literally got off there smiling like, oh, okay, I got lucky.
Yeah, and that was a day where he wasn't even sure if he was going to play because he was sick. So he's scoring 2 goals and scoring crazy goals when he's under the weather. But I would say one guy that I've really appreciated, if I'm just going to step away from the obvious answer of Crosby, is Jake Gensel, because this guy was a 3rd-round pick. He's a little undersized, but he just is such. Mike Sullivan said it the other night, and it's so true. He's a superstar. He's kind of an unknown superstar in the NHL. I mean, he's scored 40 goals 2 years in his career. He's cracked the 80-point plateau before. He's having another monster season this year. I just am really impressed by the consistency in his game, to be a smaller guy, to be willing to go to the dirty areas. And it started from the second he came into the league, Bubba. We remember his first game. He scored on his first 2 NHL shots right before Thanksgiving against the Rangers a handful of years back. Penguins went on to win the Cup that year, and he's never really looked back. So he's a guy that I would say that, mainly because I think our careers with the Penguins have kind of lined up, Jake and I, that he's been a guy that I've always, come to respect and appreciate being able to call on a nightly basis.
I love the chemistry between you and the old 2-9er. I was listening. It wasn't whatever the next game was against the Blue Jackets. Penguins fought back to tie the game. And I was listening because I was driving home, and I was like, I got to get home to listen to the end of this game. The Penguins just went up by 1, and then Evgeny Malkin just took a horrible penalty, right? Just took a horrible penalty, and they ended up tying the game. And just to hear the emotion, that you allow the emotion, because I didn't see it. I was listening on the radio. But listening to Borky's call on that penalty and your reaction to his call on that penalty, it let me know listening that was a really dumb penalty to take. But I love the fact that you allow that emotion to come into your broadcast, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, especially in radio, because like you mentioned, we're your eyes and ears at the rink, and in some places the heartbeat too, as far as what's going on there. And Phil brings it. We know that. The old 2-9er, nobody has the energy and the enthusiasm for the Pittsburgh Penguins like that guy.
Right.
And I'm lucky to be next to him, and I can kind of feed off that. But I believe, in my role, I'm calling the action. I want to give you a viewpoint that, isn't slanted one way or the other and kind of just gives you the straight fact of what's happening in the game. But because of that, and because, at the end of the day, we'd like to see the Penguins win the hockey games, I do kind of ride that wave of emotion in the moment. And you know, you're not the first person to say that. And to me, I take that as the ultimate compliment, that we kind of bring the emotion of those moments to life while we're calling the game, because that's our job. You know, as Borky always says, at the end of the day, it is a sport, but it's the entertainment business, you know, Bubba, and we're trying to entertain on top of bringing a good broadcast. So it is fun to, you know, bring that energy and emotion throughout it.
Josh Getzoff, what brought you to Pittsburgh? What was that path?
So the Penguins. I mean, I was fortunate enough. I was actually working in TV outside of Chicago for a couple of years. And you know, as I mentioned, I grew up playing hockey. It was always my first love. I wanted to get into the NHL or into hockey in general. And Penguins had a job opening in the summer of 2015. And I, you know, jumped on it, interviewed, ended up getting the job. It was originally for pregame, postgame intermissions on the radio.
Anything that gets your foot in the door, right?
Exactly. That's how I looked at it. It was hockey. And at the end of the day, that was, you know, what I always wanted to do. And I've been fortunate enough to have, as I mentioned, Mike and some other people in the Penguins organization like Tom McMillan and Mark Turley and Terry Calna, who's since moved on to the Vancouver Canucks. They really believed in me, and they really, you know, opened the door for me to get an opportunity to call some games first in the preseason. And then Mike, you know, obviously liked what he heard and felt comfortable when he started to scale his travel back with me taking over for him in certain points. And it's kind of just taken, you know, on a life of its own from there. So it sounds cliche, Bubba, but it's true. It's right place, right time. And it ended up working out. And I couldn't be happier. My wife and I, we have a son here. We have a house here. We love Pittsburgh. We're Pittsburghers.
Josh Getzoff, if you're listening to a Penguin game on the radio, you know his voice. The man who replaced Mike Lange, but has done the most amazing job. What a blessing it was to have Mike Lange on earlier and to have you on today. Thank you for joining us for Cars, Stars, and everything in between.
Thanks for having me, Bubba.